Welcome to the Happy Homeschooler Podcast, a digital support group for everyone interested in a learning lifestyle. I'm your host, Holly.
I'm your co-host, Melody.
Well, today we're going to be talking about the top 10 mistakes to avoid in the new year. But before we get into that, what's new with you?
What is new with me? Well, let's see. I have been taking some time to do some fun things for me. After the holidays, there was so much extra work. I didn't have time to read or crochet or any of that, so that's what I've been doing lately, pulling out some projects. I'm still, I mentioned that craft snowball that I started.
Oh, your craft snowball. How's that going?
Well, it melted. I did not get to.
I love that.
I got started and then stuff happened, and so I got some things knocked out, and I was like, now I'm ready to pick that up, and I'm still clearing things out. So it's that part of that. I'm getting ready. New year, we like to clear stuff out and reorganize things, and but I'm just taking some time to do something fun for myself.
That's really important because I know I get in that little grind. I'm a little hamster on a wheel kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I got to do this.
Things have to be done.
Yes. And one of the things that I don't make time for that I would like to is reading. I have a book I started. Okay, y'all, do not laugh. But I started it in 2018. Now, it's a very studious book about the history of the French language, and I'm very much enjoying it. But it's a kind of a weighty read. And so I've been picking it up and reading it in little odd moments. And I would really like to finish it before the end of 2020. So I think, after Christmas, that's a good time. You got that little week before you have to have New Year's things. And so I'm dedicated to finishing my book.
Finishing it up. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I've got 2 or 3 books going on my night table and picking up one or the other. But I did add one to that I need to not read it when I'm falling asleep.
Oh, yeah, that's a hard time.
That's why I was like, I have to think about this one.
Yeah, I'm guilty of buying more books than I'm
We're not going to
spending
talk about
time
that.
to read. Well, I really think I decided this morning to delete some things off my phone to reduce the temptation to just look at Facebook or other things. Just, those times I'm spending on that, I could be spending in more productive or life-affirming pursuits.
Right.
So, yeah, that's one of my things that I want to do in the new year is to spend more time doing things that ultimately benefit me than just mindlessly looking to see what somebody ate for dinner. That's not really very helpful for my life.
Really good.
Yeah. So anything else that's going on, or are you just trying to get ready for the new year?
Just getting ready for the new year. I'm looking forward to the new year.
I think a lot of us are hoping that 2021 will be kinder to us than 2020.
Oh, let's hope so. So yeah, just making plans and trying to do remembering to incorporate some fun things. Not all work, but carve out some time for things that are just, like you said, good downtime that actually adds some value to life.
Exactly. Yep. We only have so much time. We might as well make it something that really improves our lives. So, of course, in light of everybody having a little downtime to enjoy the holidays, we are recording this episode prior to the new year. So if anything big happened and we didn't talk about it, that's why we're going to be enjoying our families on our break. We are going to talk about the top 10 mistakes to avoid in your homeschooling in the coming year. And Melody, what would you think is the top, we're going to go from 10 down to 1. So the least important, but still important item would be number 10. What's number 10?
All right, let's do number 10 is no fun. Not having any fun or enjoying your homeschooling learning lifestyle is one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making.
Oh, yeah. I read about people, they're like, it's on the planner, we have to get it done, and you can't go and do this thing. That's a real joy killer. And if your homeschool is sucking the joy out of your family, nobody's going to be having a good time.
Something's got to change. Or people who are just, nobody likes it. That's not any kind of way to live your life every day, having to do things that
just gritting your teeth
likes.
And doing it regardless. Yeah.
Right. So what would you tell people if they're not having any fun and they're not enjoying this? What would be the first step to do to fix that?
Well, I think that you want to look at maybe your curriculum.
I think
maybe that's
too.
a problem. Or you might want to look at when do you have time as a family. You're not just a school. your family. So
home first and then school.
Right. So when do you have time where you do things as a family? Watch some shows or play some games. A lot of games are very educational.
Oh, we learned so much from
games.
And then if you can learn it through a game, then you don't have to necessarily do it as a worksheet.
Right. Yeah. So look for ways to incorporate some fun into what you have to get done. If you have to learn the state capitals, get a puzzle and put the state puzzle together and talk about the capitals. If you have to learn about the presidents, maybe you can get some flashcards or some kind of a game that's about the presidents.
Kind of a game.
Bring fun. You can bring fun into things. And, I remember my 7th grade social studies teacher, Mr. During. See, I remember his name. He taught us, and he was so funny. Like when he was talking about prehistoric people and all these things he said, he was so amusing that I still remember the things he taught us. And that's an important thing, is that we learn a lot by humor. So bring some fun and humor into your school day. It'll be great for you. It'll be great for your kids. And then when they look back on school, they'll have some of those fun memories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's good. All right. So number 10 would be no fun. What do you have for number 9?
Well, number 9 is overscheduling or doing too much. So, we have a lot of wonderful opportunities as homeschoolers, but we cannot partake of all of them.
No, we can't do everything.
No.
And I think we want to do such a good job, especially in the beginning when we're new, that we try to do too much. We try to cram too much in to prove that we're doing a good job.
Right.
And we just burn ourselves out.
Yeah, it's not helpful if you are signed up for so many activities or you have so many courses that you can't get things done, you're doing them poorly, or people are just upset and unhappy about having to do them. And because we have so many things online, people are like, oh, let's sign my kid up for OutSchool. They can take this course to make hot chocolate bombs. Or, and let's sign them up over here and they can learn how to do basket weaving or whatever. And you know what? Really, if you're not getting your basics done, then you don't have a firm foundation to build on anything. So don't go crazy cramming every good thing into your schedule, because it's going to end up stressing you and your kids.
Right. I think that's where, like if you're using a planned curriculum, it can be really helpful because it already has a chunk of time that's enough.
Right.
And a lot of us have a little trouble knowing when enough is enough. If this is good, then like twice as much would be better, right? And your poor children there's just only so much they can soak in at one sitting.
And you don't have to prove to other people that you're doing a good job homeschooling by doing too much. I know a lot of people feel really under pressure to prove that they're giving their kids a good education. Mm-hmm. I have a friend whose mother is an elementary school teacher, and she's homeschooling for the first time this year. And the mother has had a lot to say about how this woman is doing her homeschooling. And finally I told her, well, you know what? You are your child's parent, not your mom.
That's right.
And so, you don't need to homeschool to please your mom. You need to homeschool to please yourself and to give your child the education your child needs.
Right.
And so overscheduling isn't going to make that better.
No. And a homeschool schedule is not going to be the same as a classroom schedule.
Sure.
Because it's 1-on-1 or maybe, 5-on-1 depending on how many children, but it's more like 1-on-1 tutoring, and so kids are catching things faster, lessons are shorter.
More efficient, for sure.
More efficient, so don't try to do too much.
Okay, well that would bring us to number 8. What do we have for number 8?
For number 8, we have no breaks or too many breaks.
Oh, yes. We see the pendulum swinging wildly on that one, don't we?
Both ways. Either somebody's got their nose to the grindstone and they're not going to take a break because they want to finish a certain amount of stuff by a certain amount of time, and forget that the days get really long if you don't take a break. We always had a break to go outside and do things in the morning or at lunchtime, and then do a little bit more school, and then send the children back outside to go do some more and have... You need that mental break and just get up and move around. Right.
It actually gets the brain ready for academic work when you get the kids out and let them get their bodies moving.
And then you come back in and your mind is refreshed and rested and ready to do some more work. But the opposite is also true. When you take so many breaks that you lose momentum and you can't like if you're learning a new concept and you're building one small thing on another and you're taking so many breaks in between, you lose the flow.
Exactly. And conversely, the no breaks or too many breaks is also like, if you don't take any vacation time, if you don't take off for maybe a little bit in the spring or a winter break, who wants to grind all the time?
Nobody.
Or if you take your winter break or your summer break and it just stretches out really long. If you're on a winter break and it's February, I think you need to get back on the road and get back into the lane. You have to have a balance.
Yes, you do.
I
know a lot of us take off from Thanksgiving to the New Year.
And that's a good long chunk.
That's a really long chunk. We usually took off somewhere after the first week or two of December and took off 2 or 3 weeks. But I was talking to a young person not too long ago, and they're like, we haven't done school in so long. And then later the parent happened to mention that they had just taken their break like a week before. But that week seemed like a really long time for this
to the child?
Small child. And I was like, that's pretty typical. But they were like, yeah, it's been a long time. But they were doing other things that didn't look like school to this child. They had some parties and some other activities and like some of those little classes on the side. So they were still doing things that the mom knew were educational,
right? But
they weren't paper with a pencil to this child, and so
they didn't think that was school.
Think they were doing school.
Yeah, kids are pretty funny like that, and their ideas are not always grounded in what is actually going on. So
they don't always know what's going on behind the scenes,
right? Exactly. But if you're never taking breaks, or you are just not getting anything done because you keep following your bliss too often, you got to find a happy medium. Well, that brings us to number 7, doing too little or underscheduling or no scheduling. Those are all kind of in the same ball of yarn there.
They sure are. I think when we get tired, maybe toward the end of the year, I see this happening a lot where what you thought you could accomplish at the beginning of the school year when you had high hopes,
bright-eyed and bushy-tailed,
well rested, and all of that. Now you can't get anything.
It feels like
done.
a slog.
You're slogging through to the end. Or I see it happen when people just get cabin fever from being like the weather keeps you from going outside and taking some really good breaks. They just we shut down. But if you're not scheduling enough to do, for one, you won't get to a finishing point at a happy place,
right?
And then your children will get bored. And that's when they don't have anything to do and they're making their own fun, or they might be making mischief and just getting into too much. And you're just not moving forward.
Yes. And, we all get kind of tired. And so if you're getting tired because maybe it's April and you have a month and a half left to go, again, back to our number 10 of no fun. Find some ways to bring some fun into what you still have to finish up. Because if you don't finish up, and we don't mean you have to finish every book, obviously there's a lot of repetition in some curriculum, and it's really not necessary to, do 10 pages of each type of an activity in your math or whatever. But if you don't get to a point where you have completed the information that the kids need to learn, when you start up again, they're behind. And so that's not a fun place for anybody to be. You've really got to have a plan and get to the end. But there's ways to get there if you're running out of steam that are more enjoyable.
Right. Just change it up a little bit. Find another way to teach the same concept. Like you said before, if they've mastered a concept, move on to the next one. But
right.
Don't move too fast. That's
there's a happy medium. Like my math curriculum is Math, you see. And there's a lot of pages that they can do each week. But we only do the number of pages that we need to until my son shows an understanding of the concepts. And once he shows an understanding of the concept, then I let him take the test and we go on to the next lesson. So some weeks he might do 6 or 7 pages. And another week he might only need to do 3.
Right.
And so, you're with your kids every day. You can figure that out if you need to do more, but
more or less.
More or less. Yep. Alrighty.
So that was number 7.
Number 7.
What do we have for number 6?
Well, that one is no end to the school day.
Oh.
Some people mistake the idea of a learning lifestyle to be do your papers and read your lessons and stuff all day long. And that's a prescription for burnout.
Oh, it is. We always had an end to the day. I mean, it's a learning lifestyle, so we're learning all the time from many different things, in a lot of different ways. But we always had a cutoff point to the end of the school day. For us, it was 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock, Mom was done. I was ready because there were other things that needed to happen in order for dinner to be ready when Dad got home, and for bedtimes to happen in a good time,
Yeah, if you get off track with one item, it dominoes to the next.
And so we had an end of the school day. We arranged it because we were on a good routine so that we could get our basics done and be done at that time. But there were some times that some things would roll over to the next day. And that's why we did those basics first thing in the morning and those kind of fun things in the afternoon. But what I would usually find is that those school lessons do pop up in their play as they're working through them and thinking about them here and there. Not always, but, historical figures would show up.
Oh, sure. That's when you can tell they've really learned something. But also, if you don't have an end to the day and you're trying to make everything into a lesson, it just makes your kids kind of feel like you don't want to be their parent. And kids you need to be... you're not just a home educator, you're a parent. So you have to leave off the lessons at some point of the day and be the parent. And, being the educator is a weighty responsibility. And for me, it was always nice when the school day was done just to be able to be mom. And
take off the teacher
hat and... do some fun or silly things, make a snack, play a game that was just for frivolous. Like we used to play Sega and the girls liked to play this Barbie. Barbie drove a car and did some stuff. It was just frivolous fun, but it was building relationship.
Oh, that's really
important. That's really important because it doesn't matter how good of an education you give your children if you have no good relationship with them outside of and any educational stuff. And also if you don't have a good relationship when it's hard, lesson wise, there's nothing to build on to keep going. So you need to have an end to the day and be a family too.
That's true. Some stopping point.
Yep. It's definitely important. We're going to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsor. And when we return, we'll talk about the top 5 mistakes to avoid in 2021 with your homeschooling. We're going to talk a little bit about our sponsor, Transcript Maker. As you know, it's an online service that allows you to create professional high school transcripts in the comfort of your own home. And Transcript Maker's done something really cool. We are involved with the Homeschool Connect Expo, which is a virtual homeschool expo that you can attend from the comfort of your own home. We're really into being comfortable at home right now. The neat thing about the Homeschool Connect Expo is that you can go through all these virtual booths and see all kinds of vendors. You can listen to people giving speeches about things pertaining to homeschooling. And our booth has some special offers. You can watch some of our best videos that we've uploaded to YouTube. And we've got a 20% off discount code for you when you subscribe to Transcript Maker. To find the Homeschool Connect Expo, go to homeschoolconnectexpo.com to join the virtual conference. And to find Transcript Maker, you'll want to do a search for our name, or you can look for graduation resources. It's free to register for the Homeschool Connect Expo, and it will be up for 1 year. So you can go back as often as you want and tell your friends and enjoy the resources we have for you and the whole experience of a virtual conference. Also, we offer a 14-day free trial of our transcript template. Go to www.transcriptmaker.com and get your free trial. Transcript Maker, simply better transcripts. Alrighty, well, let's talk about the top 5 mistakes people might be making in their homeschooling in the new year. And maybe we can tell them a little bit about how to avoid those too.
Important, exactly.
Yeah, so that would bring us to number 5. What do we have for number 5, Melody?
Number 5, we have no planning or no goals.
Oh, No planning.
So if you don't know where you're going,
how are you going to get there? Oh my goodness. Do you remember back in the day, before we had navigation assistance on our phone, if you were taking a long trip, you had to really do some planning. You had to get a map and make a plan. And it's the same thing with your homeschooling. Like, if you want to get to the end of the school year and your kid will have finished their language arts and they have learned certain math concepts, how are you going to get there if you don't have a plan?
Right. You won't. Or you'll just muddle about till you get to some ending point. But it may not be when you want it to be. You'll eventually get to the end, but it might be the middle of the summer.
Right.
Or the beginning of the next school year.
You'll be finishing up second grade, and then the next week you'll have to start third grade.
Which would be fine. I mean, you could make that work.
Sure. Year-round schooling is actually a thing that's helpful.
A thing. But like if you want to reduce stress, and I think who doesn't, a plan is handy. And that's where a lot of curriculums have taken that into account. So they've planned it for you, which is really handy. You know that if you do one lesson each day of this math book, you'll finish by the end of the school year.
Right.
Most of them have more lessons than you need, and not everybody gets to the end. But we always did, because we just kept going through that book till we finished it. But if you want to cover like a certain time period for this school year, you kind of got to break it down into months and know how long are we going to spend on this before we move on. So I find some people are stressed out because they didn't take some time to plan.
To do that planning. That's right. Well, and I think it's really nice for the kids too. So my son was doing a race series. It's called the Healthy Kids Race Series. And they run a race each week for 5 weeks. And, we knew when we were going to start the race series, when it was going to wrap up. And then at the first race, he got his time. And then we talked about ways that he could improve his time. And we assessed how he was doing each week. Well, your homeschooling is the same way.
Just
so you get a
like
plan, assess how it's going at the end of the school week when you're writing stuff down. So even if you have a curriculum that's all planned out, you still need to get it onto your planner. And see, okay, math, so every week on Sunday, I sit down with my planner and the things we're going to do. And I write it down. Okay, Monday is, lesson 1, and Tuesday. And I'll look at the lessons. Do I need to do all of them? And then I write it all down. Now, if I need to make a course correction, cool. I just make a little line through it and I make an adjustment. But at least I know what we're going to do. So when I get up on Monday morning, I am not spending valuable educational time, instructional time, trying to figure out what I'm going to do. Because, oh my goodness, I would not like that. My son would get bored. He'd start to get into mischief because he would say, well, she doesn't know what we're going to do. I'll go find something to do.
Well, then you don't have your materials ready, or what if you need something for an experiment? You wouldn't have it.
You need to plan ahead.
You need to plan ahead.
Yeah.
And also moving it from your curriculum into your planner on your calendar, you can see where maybe your holidays or appointments or things are going to come in that you have to make adjustments, which you wouldn't know if you just didn't think about that.
Yeah, it's really key, I think, to sit down on Friday after the school week's done, or Saturday or Sunday. I like to do mine on Sunday afternoon. That's really a time I don't have a lot going on. And see, what do we need? What art materials do I need for our art lesson? What poems do I want to print out for my son to read this coming week? What resources do we need for any of the other items that we're going to be studying? And boy, is it a pleasure to get up then on Monday morning and just pick up the things and be ready to go.
Yep, hit the floor running.
Exactly. Got a plan. If you're not a planner, try a little bit of planning and see if you think that was that beneficial to you. I know some people really like to, my husband does not like a schedule. I don't understand this, but even he has some plans. Maybe you have a big block schedule idea where you don't have every little detail, but in the morning you're going to do math and science.
Right, a routine. Some kind of an idea about what's going to happen before you open your eyes on Monday morning.
Right, exactly, because your kids are looking to you for leadership and you have to provide something. Okay, well then, what would number 4 be?
Number 4 would be not having support or trying to do it all by yourself, or I guess super mom. Trying to be super mom. That is one sure fast track to burnout.
Any homeschooling parent, mom or dad, you got to realize that you cannot do it by yourself. And if you try to, you're going to be burning out. No one can do everything on their own.
No, you're wearing too many hats.
You are.
There's too many things to do. And so you want to make sure you have some kind of support in your community, or it could be online, a group of people online. There are a lot of groups online now on social media, but it is really handy to have like a local group where you can go to the park or get together, or just somebody you can call on a bad day, or text, just like, my kid is doing this thing, and they can say, oh yeah, that happens.
Yes.
Or mine did that too. And just sometimes things are hard, but you do not want to try to do everything by yourself. Your family needs to be included in the housekeeping, and
your family,
your kids in the planning too.
Right. It's not helping your family at all if you don't include them so they can be a part of the solution, or B, if you do everything by yourself and then you're angry and resentful.
Oh, nobody's happy.
And then you're stomping around the house all mad because you had to do everything. That's not good. And your family doesn't want to see you like that. They want to be part of it, but you have to help them to understand. I need your help. I was just explaining to my son recently, would you like it if you did all these things and no one helped you? And he said, no, I wouldn't like it. And I'm like, well, then why would you think that I would like to do all these things without help? If we do them together, they're done, and we can move on to have some more fun. And that's the other thing is, have a little carrot out there. So, give yourself the support you need, and then you'll have some time to enjoy your life too. I mean, that's good for everybody.
Well, right. I don't know if we mentioned yet that for moms in particular, having some time to do what nurtures yourself, or your own, you might need some quiet time, or a grocery store run all by yourself. Yeah, for me, it was going to the library back in the day when you could do that. Go to the library to get the books for the week. We also had a trip. I took the kids to the library, but there was a planning trip that I would go all by myself. Yeah,
if you're the home educator, you need to have time to fill your bucket. If you're a grandparent home educating, if you're a dad, a mom, you need to fill your bucket so you have something to pour out to your kids. You can't give from an empty source.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's part of that too. That is a mistake. Don't make that mistake. Find some support. Include your family.
And find what feeds you to keep going.
Good. Yeah. Find what
for sure.
You to keep going. All right. So what would be our next top 5?
Going to number 3. We're in the home stretch. Number 3 is disorganization. Oh my gosh.
That is the stressful thing. Like if you can't find things and you don't know where things are, or you don't know what's coming up next or what you're going to eat, that kind of disorganization will wreck your day.
Yeah, if you don't know if you have the things you need and you go on a big search to find them, it just
if it takes you 10 minutes to find everything all throughout the day, by the end of the day you're going to be really frustrated. So it's worth it to spend some time to get your house in order.
It's kind of painful to deal with disorganization at first. For some people, it's really hard to get rid of things. But it's so helpful and such a gift to yourself.
All right. I'm just getting rid of things. Like clutter that's organized is
still clutter.
Right. So it's really freeing to get rid of things that aren't useful, or they aren't serving your family, or they don't fit your current life. Just send those off out for someone else.
Right. If you keep managing the same items, those are deferred decisions. You haven't decided what to do with them. You keep moving them all around the house. Some people say, if you haven't used it in 6 months, you haven't used it in a year. Obviously, we don't mean things like holiday decorations that you're going to use once a year.
Not those things.
But,
or family heirlooms.
Yeah. But if you have, so we had a bowl in the kitchen that I was using for my pet's water. But the bowl wasn't a flat bottom bowl. And so sometimes it got knocked over, and then we had to clean up spilled water. And I kept deferring a decision to replace the bowl. So finally, I just replaced the bowl, and I kept the old bowl next to the new bowl till the pets decided they liked the new bowl. And I took it up off the floor, and it really is such a big improvement. I wish I had done it sooner. But those things that you haven't decided about, they take up so much time, or they cause problems you have to fix.
Mm-hmm. Or it's just the mental weight of knowing
it is
that someday you got to do something about this situation.
It feels so freeing to have actually done it.
Oh,
it's
does.
well worth the time it takes and the pain, the emotional pain that you go through sometimes to streamline and organize. You'll thank yourself a million times over.
That's true. Mm-hmm. Of course, there are whole books that were written about that, about decluttering and getting rid of things. And do you have an emotional attachment to these things?
Well, I got to say that Marie Kondo, I love you. And I have reorganized my drawers and folded my laundry in much more efficient ways, but I cannot get rid of my books.
Oh, goodness me. No, we keep the books.
Homeschoolers can't condo their books, I don't think.
But when we moved a few years ago and we moved into a space, I did not have the same amount of bookshelves. And so I did have to go through and make some really hard decisions about what got to come and stay and what. And then some of them, I guess they were deferred decisions because I just asked my grown daughters, like, would you like to hold on to this book?
you still want them around.
Like, I know where it is, and I've gotten some of those back late, like, Mom, we're not going to use this. And so I got rid of them. And then, but I have had that happen where I got rid of something thinking, oh, this is just taking up space, and then needed it to teach a class or something.
Sure. So, sometimes it's okay to let those things live at the library. Or
yes, that's
or
good.
If they're online resources, if they're what are those books that you don't have to pay for anymore after the copyright runs out? They're online.
Public domain.
Public domain, yeah. If it's a public domain book, you probably don't need to keep it unless you have. I have a Rudyard Kipling book. It's beautiful, and I can't remember the title of it now, but it talks about like how the elephant got his trunk and. I can't remember the name of it.
Stories, but
right, just so stories.
Just so stories.
Yes, and so that book is in the public domain, but my book is from 1911 or 1912, and it's beautiful color plates. Am I going to get rid of that? However, it
brings you joy.
It brings me a lot of joy, but other books that are in the public domain, I don't need them, or I download them on my Kindle. I don't need the physical book.
Right.
You just kind of have to make those decisions, but.
Disorganization will
it'll eat your time.
It'll be a big drag. Okay, that was number 3. Number 2 we have is thinking curriculum is the teacher.
Oh. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Lots of people, we get too attached to the curriculum. We think that it's going to be the thing that teaches our children, and really you still need to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, when kids get to high school, a lot of times you can hand them the text and they can teach themselves. But along the way, you still, even in high school, you still need to be available to your kid as their educational facilitator. And like a lot of people think if they put their kid in an online class, that's it. Okay, we'll go watch your class. There might be valuable information in there, but you still have to guide your child because kids are still learning how to learn and access that information.
Learning how to learn. That's so important. And you need to have like discussions with them after an online class or something like that to find out what they pulled from the information, especially in high school when they're taking, higher level classes. You want to have a discussion. What did you think about that? They don't have years and years of observing things in the world to be able to, use as a backdrop to the information they just got. And so discussion time in high school is really important.
Right. Yeah. But, curriculum is good, but it still needs a teacher.
Yes, it does.
Curriculum is not the teacher.
It's a tool.
Exactly.
A tool to use.
A tool to use, not a tool to obey. So that's the other thing is when you have your curriculum and you're thinking, well, it's all done and, it's telling me everything. You still have to be the person to interpret how to get this information to your kid. It's just not going to do it all for you.
Right. Okay, what about the number 1 mistake that you're seeing people make? Oh,
well, the number 1 mistake, I think, across the board is just inconsistency.
Yeah.
You're doing too much one day, you're doing too little another day. You planned a lot for this week, but the next week you fell off the planning wagon. All those wild ups and downs, it just it makes everything so much harder than a little bit done every day in a straightforward manner.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for everything in our lives.
It really is. It's that slow and steady wins the race.
Mm-hmm.
I did just a little bit and then a little bit more, and every day builds on the day before.
Mm-hmm.
Those small lessons and short lessons that you just keep going, build upon each other. And then you get some momentum going, and they can connect what they learned before with what they're learning today. But if you're inconsistent, you just lose ground in between bouts of, getting things done.
You have productivity and then no productivity. And the thing is you can't take 6 weeks of math lessons that you didn't do and cram them all into your kid in a really compressed amount of time.
They'll fall right out.
They'll fall right out. And you, like you said, when you're putting a puzzle together, you have to take one piece and add another piece and add another piece. And education is like that. So if you're inconsistent, you miss a puzzle piece. And you might not know you missed a puzzle piece because you took a little break. You took off to go to the park and that day, which was fun, but you didn't get back to the math lesson. And then the next day you did something else and you didn't get back to the math lesson. And then when you pick up, you might not even pick up where you really left off.
It's true. You really have to start over.
Yeah, it's just such a destroyer of so many things. Same thing with your housekeeping. If you
really shows up.
Don't pick up every day, and then all of a sudden, you have this huge job. Whereas if you do a little daily maintenance on your home, you do a little daily exercise on your body.
Oh yeah.
You do a little daily work on your front yard or whatever. You don't have to do a great big gigantic time-consuming effort to get to the result.
Just a little bit every day. It's just kind of like keeping up with the laundry. If you do a little every day, or you get that wrapped up and moved out of the way and put away, you don't end up with a mountain.
Right. Conquering Mount Never Rest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Weeds will take over your garden, but if you do a little bit every day, all those little things, little bitty bits make a huge difference. They
and really
sometimes
do.
I think it's all those small efforts that add up to really big results.
Right, because incremental progress is still progress. And doing nothing and starting and stopping, it's very inefficient and it's very discouraging.
It is.
And we don't want to have discouraged students, and we don't want to be discouraged educators. We really want to do things that will promote the overall well-being of our students and ourselves. And so being consistent is one of those things. And some of us didn't grow up with consistency, and it's really hard to implement as adults. And so maybe you need an accountability partner, someone that can help you.
Right, because if it's not your normal, it feels funny when you get to, or you don't know if it can make it last. So it's a good goal to find a way. We all start off the new year with good intentions.
Yes, we do.
So we're going to do things, right or whatever. But having an accountability partner is a great idea.
Yeah, so someone who could say, "How's that going for you?" and brainstorm with them.
Did you work out today, or did you vacuum today, or just whatever. Depending on how good a friend it is.
Yeah.
how transparent you want to be.
Right. My middle daughter and I kind of do that with our steps. We both try to get a certain amount of steps in a day, and we'll report to each other how we did or why we didn't get what we wanted to do done and what we're going to do about that, or what our struggles are. A lot of times we can't see the forest for the trees, but when we share our struggles with someone else, they can say, "Oh, well, you told me that all these things happened. That's probably where you fell off the wagon." Because we're not always as good at evaluating what's going on with ourselves as someone who's a little more detached or more objective.
That's so true. And having someone to do that kind of keeps it circulating back up into the top of the pile of things that you want to do. And sometimes life events happen and we get knocked so far off, we just have to really climb back into our routine, and we need people to encourage us. It's like, well, be kind to yourself. This crazy thing just happened. And
yes.
You need to give yourself some grace.
True enough.
And that happened to me last year or maybe the year before, and it was really helpful for someone to say, well, just remember, this is what happened. So just to get going again.
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, it's important to know what the pitfalls are so that you can be on alert for them. And when you see them, you're ready to address them. And that's what this episode's been all about.
That's right. Find a friend who can help you avoid the pitfalls, and you can help them and have a more successful year.
Yep. Have a great homeschool year in 2021. At this time in our podcast, we usually address a big question. What's our big question this time, Melody?
This time we've seen a lot of people wondering about how to avoid distractions in their homeschool.
Oh, and they are plentiful.
Well, they're from everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's not your little brother distracting the big sister, it's the phone's ringing or the TV's on or something's going on outside or someone's coming over. There's all kind of distractions. What advice would you have for that?
Well, I think that, so here's one thing I've been trying to do to minimize distractions is I am putting my phone in my office. I work from home. So if you don't have an office, you can put your phone in your bedroom. But I'm putting my phone away from our homeschooling area. So when we sit down to do school, when we do school mainly in our living room and then in the kitchen, I go put my phone in my office. I leave it on so I can hear if the phone is ringing, because I do have to answer phone calls for my clients. Right. But I'm not tempted when I get bored while my child's droning on and on with his narration to look at my phone, because I'm a human and I can get easily distracted. So putting distractions away as much as possible when you get ready to start school is a very smart idea.
That's one huge thing. We used to not answer the phone. This is before cell phones. But we didn't answer the phone during school hours. And we also, because sometimes we would be schooling when the public school was having a holiday, we had a sign on our door. It's like, please come back later for the neighborhood kids. So it was down low, and some of them couldn't read, but it was shaped like a stop sign. And we just told them, it's like, we're busy right now, we can't play, please come back later, because we do want to see you, but just right now we're busy. And that was one way we got reduced that distraction. What would you suggest for people with like lots of little ones in the home and they're making lots of noise? I mean, we always had toddlers and babies while we were homeschooling.
Yeah. So when I started off with my first 5 kiddos, we did have some toddlers. And one of the things I did was I would get my older kids started with something they could do independently. Maybe their copy work or maybe copying their spelling words, something like that didn't really require my attendance. And I would take the little kids into the next room and I would play with them. I had a little preschool for my little kids. And after I had played with them for an amount of time and the other kids were done, then I would give the little kids something that would keep their interest, a different toy that they hadn't played with. And they would be nearby where I could keep my eye on them. But then they were happily occupied for maybe 15 or 20 minutes. And then I could go on to the next thing with my older kids. And we did a lot of things when the little ones were taking a nap.
Yeah, times are great.
Now, as the kids get older, if a younger sibling is distracting, they're more responsible and they can take their work after you've given them some instruction and go complete it in their bedroom. Or if that's not an option, maybe they can have noise-canceling headphones on. Or maybe you can put headphones on the littler child and have them watch an educational video so that they're occupied. You might just have to try a lot of different ideas until you find the one that's working. And it might not work for a long time because as your kids get older.
That's where you have to have several things up your sleeve to keep trying, because usually those kind of novelty, if they're kind of novel at the beginning, they work and then they don't work so well after all. We also would have one child go entertain the little one so I could work with another one and then they would switch off, and that worked. But most of the time, some of it was teaching and training the little ones in how to keep themselves occupied with the toys and putting things up. I would set a timer so that I would remember to go check on them.
Oh, that's
so
really
that
helpful.
Not too much came out, and then we could pick that stuff up before we pulled out something else.
And the other thing is also that none of us ever get to work in a vacuum where there aren't distractions.
True.
So it's important also to teach your children how to focus on the thing that they have to do. So they might need to wear headphones, or they might need to realize that sometimes they're more efficient times. Maybe they can do their math paper earlier in the morning, or maybe they can, because it's not important to me sometimes when the thing gets done as much as that it gets done.
Right.
So if your more productive time is at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and you can focus better then, that's great too.
Right.
So you just have to have a lot of different choices available, and keeping yourself from being distracted, keeping your house distractions at a minimum. You know, it's not a good idea to try to multitask and run your Roomba during school.
No.
It's not a good idea to have people over during your school hours. I know a lot of times when people start homeschooling, their friends think, oh, they're home now. Maybe they can watch my toddler while I run errands.
Yes, they do think that.
But no, you can't. You have to learn to say no to some things because you've taken on a new full-time job. And what other job do you have where you're going to be babysitting people when you're, you know, like sometimes it might need to happen, but really on a consistent basis, or like my mom would try to call me during the day and be like, Mom, we're doing school.
Right. Can't talk now.
You know, I
gotta do school.
Cool that you've got time available, but I'm busy.
And the other thing is you can teach your children not to, what am I trying to say? To deal with distractions and to learn how to focus despite distractions or extra noise and things like that. And they can learn how to keep their focus on what they're doing and not just watch someone else do something. So it's kind of that muscle you learn to flex and get stronger. And at the same time, you're teaching the other ones to...
You have to teach people to be considerate of each other.
Exactly. That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Because even though a person is young, they can still learn. Like, so in our house, my older son that lives with us, so he's a shift worker. So some weeks he goes to work from 9 to 5. Some weeks he goes to work from 2 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Some weeks he goes to work from 6 a.m. to, you know, whatever. And so in the evening, if he has to sleep, you know, I'll have to tell my son, hey, we need to be quiet. Right. He's asleep. And then conversely, if my son is home and I'm putting the younger boy to bed, I might have to tell my son, hey, can you turn down whatever it is you're watching? So the whole family has to learn to be considerate of the other family members. That is an important skill, because when you grow up and you work in a cubicle next to somebody or you're a neighbor to somebody, it's really important to consider others. So it all kind of folds together, is avoiding distractions. You know, we have to do our part as the homeschooling parents to minimize distractions that we can minimize. Our kids have to minimize the way they distract each other. You know, sometimes they're just being silly,
sometimes
poking around, and if they can't sit next to each other, then maybe you need to put one in one room and one in another, and you go back and forth a little bit. But yeah, distractions are part of life, and we have to learn our ways to deal with it, and it's different for each person.
That's true.
If you have a big homeschool question you would like us to answer, you can reach out to us on Twitter at _homeschoolpod.
Or email us at happyhomeschoolpod@gmail.com.
Or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/happyhomeschoolpod. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Holly.
I'm Melody.
Happy homeschooling. Hi, this is your host, Holly Williams Urbach. Thank you for listening to the Happy Homeschooler Podcast, a Transcript Maker Production. My co-host is Melody Gillum. This episode was produced by Matthew Bass and edited by Norah Williams. Our graphic design is by Pete Soloway, and our music is by the Great Pangolin. You can find her music on YouTube and Twitter at Kylie Wins. That's Kailey Wins. If you'd like to help our podcast grow, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Or as always, tell people about us. If you have a big homeschooling question for us, please send it to us on Twitter at _homeschool. I guess gotta start over. That was crap. Okay. If you have a big question,